I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast, the podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts Corey and Finn, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @IntWreckPod. That's @INTWRECKPOD. Also, big shout out to the 4 Laps Down Facebook community for having us and hosting us. It's Dega week, guys. We got a big one. We're back to super speedways. We're jumping out of the general North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia region for a little bit before we start heading in towards the All-Star race. And, you know, we're about to see things kind of get turned up to 11 speed-wise and kind of see the burner turn up a little bit for some of the drivers that are maybe not quite performing in the same way that people may have thought, and trying to see if anybody's going to continue performing where they are. So what do you guys think heading into Dega, and what do you think coming out of Martinsville? I know Corey had himself a pseudo rough day that day.
An emotional day.
It was an emotional day. That's a good way to put it.
Let's just say this. 3 weeks ago, we were clowning Denny for spinning JJ Yaley. I have a weird feeling that Corey doesn't mind if JJ Yaley gets booted early in a couple races here soon after what had to have been. I mean, so I stepped away. What happened on the JJ Yaley caution? Did he get booted? Did he get punted? Did they just spin? Like, what happened to him that caused that caution?
I don't think that wasn't the one with the random tire, was it?
No, it was not.
He just spun. I think Yaley just spun, dude.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, so because the tire caution benefited Chase. The tire caution, and I didn't get a chance to go back and kind of see what happened and who had pitted and who hadn't pitted. I, for some reason, thought that the 11 had pitted and then decided to come back down again. It was such a weird thing, and it just put Chase in front with pretty solid tires. And I mean, seriously, we were just click them off, stay green, and Chase Briscoe's in the playoffs. Absolutely demoralizing. And then, of course, the one motherfucker that benefits from this is the 5 of Kyle Larson. Your day couldn't have gotten worse.
No, it was the ultimate rug pull, kicking the balls. I felt terrible. I left the chat immediately after the race. I did not watch the burnout or any of the interviews. I was very, very sad. That being said, this is the second time this year that a Stewart-Haas car has lost a race because they took 4 tires on the last pit stop. So, SHR, please, let's get it together when the chips are down and your car's up front. 2 tires. Say it with me. 2 tires. It's the second time you've been beaten because you insist on taking 4 tires.
Right.
The fall off was not a problem. The tires were not really a problem.
I mean,
pit call screwed them.
What Ross Chastain had done earlier in the race, coming out with staying out, and it took a while now when the tires did eventually even up. Yes, Ross fell off a cliff, but and another thing too is I felt like the track was a lot racier earlier in the race than it was late. You know, one of the things that got me really frustrated was the 48. And you guys remember there was a portion of the I think it was the second stage where Bowman went from like what had to have been 12th to 3rd. He ran everybody. I was like, dude, he caught another second. Dude, he's another second up on Priest. He's all right. He just passed 2 cars like they're nothing. Just like the best car on the track by a country mile, finished the stage in 3rd. They put new tires on it. We're 4 caution laps away from Bowman being the fastest guy on the track by at least 2 to 3 tenths. Put new tires on it. The sun came out a little bit. Gone. Immediately back 5 positions. Running around with Blaney in the mid-teens. like I just remember being so
the worst place you could be.
Like, how is the setup so bad? Or there's something about these tires, they do something different with the tire. I don't know what the 48 did, and that's been extremely frustrating for me because this is the only race all year long where I have looked at the 48 and gone, that's race-winning speed. I actually put a I put a post up on the NASCAR subreddit, and it had about 50 comments. I called it the curious case of Alex Bowman. And I kind of got, maybe I didn't get the
Finn's manifesto.
maybe I didn't get the feedback maybe I thought that I wanted on it. Maybe I came across as more upset. But what I said is, and I spoke a lot with Nate about this, Silver Thunder, was he thought that he told me that he really believes that Alex Bowman's on the hot seat. That if Alex Bowman isn't putting up a solid playoff performance this year, that it might be out of the 40. And I think maybe I started to believe him a little bit. I think like the hot seat as in Hendrick's actively looking for a new driver. But I will say this. Hendrick is where all of the Chevy drivers want to be. And also the only car that is even remotely available right now in the Hendrick shop is the 48. No, but Byron's not coming out of the 24.
Well,
he's the young stud. He's not now. Not now.
Well, right. So that's what I was gonna say. Is like I don't know that is very much a this season situation from what I could tell, because if Byron hasn't done what he's done this year so far in getting his wins and continuously, running up front as much as he has this year, this isn't the same discussion. I really don't think that it is. I think that this is something that really would have gained steam over the last month.
Right.
I mean, it's really like, because you were right. That's the thing that's been really weird this year with the 48 in general. Like that particular race this last week, I was with you, Finn. I was looking at that like at some point he's going to find a way to sneak up front, because as somebody who, roots for a driver who has a tendency, like whose general strategy on a regular basis to find their own groove and also tends to like find their way back to the middle of the pack to stay out of some chaos and then utilize their speed to try and move up front, because that's something Denny has openly said that he's done in numerous races. It's looked the way that Alex has found ways to, even if he's somewhat towards the front and drops a little bit, if he's got the car, he's got the ability to get up there and try and get there. And this past week at Martinsville, he had that speed. He had it.
Right.
Until the sun came out for some reason. It was like
as
soon
laps.
as Joy mentioned that the sun came out,
Yeah.
he was like, Bowman was like, oh shit, oh no. He's like, man,
And what got me even more upset was like 50 laps past of Bowman like dropping. He'd already dropped 5-6 spots. And then Boyer in the booth was like, and the 48's been the best car all day. And like, shut up, Clint. First of all, you're 50 laps behind everything in terms of the state of the race. Second, no, he's not fast. Now, again, the threads seem to be like, why would you be upset? He's leading the points. He's being more consistent. He has 0 stage wins. 0.
Yeah,
When
I'm
you're
looking,
ahead,
and,
you're in top 5
interesting
equipment.
point about what you were saying as well is Chase Elliott's first race of the season was Sunday, and he finished
not
in
first
top
race of
10,
the
and
season,
Bowman
right?
won.
But first race since the incident.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Right.
So it was his first race back, right? And he's faster. than Bowman.
Completely rusty, qualified in the back. Now, he didn't have, he wasn't better throughout the race, right? But he found a way to get up there, and through strategy and everything, got up there to the front. But I'd be honest with you, Corey. I would be more excited right now as a Chase Briscoe fan than a Bowman fan when it comes to the playoffs, because the last 2 weeks, we now see Briscoe with race winning speed.
Yeah,
you now
I
see
agree.
Briscoe with two vastly different track, right? Durton and Martinsville, but on the package that we both talked about. This is the Phoenix package, right?
Yes.
Again, what are both of those tracks? These are both tracks that downshift. I swear, something about Chase Briscoe and these tracks where we downshift. I don't know what he does, but he is the fastest off the corner. Had this race won. That's back to back. So I get that last week was frustrating, but I mean, seriously, with the scope of the rest of the race, and this is, I guess, the thought. Would you rather be a fan of a driver that's up there winning races, or trying to win races, or competing for wins, chasing down the leader, obviously the fastest car on the track, right?
Neither of us are a fan of a driver that's winning races.
Or
right, now.
or would you? Well, hold on. Neither is he.
None of us are.
Neither is he.
None of us are.
Okay, relax. All right, but would you rather that, or would you rather to be a fan of a guy that can run 8th in the 5th place car? You know, like
I
this
don't know,
is
man. It's this. I don't want to just make the whole thing about Briscoe, but he does seem to do better on this package, where
Right.
there's like a little less grip or downforce or whatever it is when the cars get a little loose and the handling is not quite as good. That's when Briscoe seems to shine. The dirt race, it's a novelty. I understand all of that. He's a dirt guy. He did well on the dirt track, but whatever.
Right.
It wasn't just Briscoe yesterday. Not yesterday, but at Martinsville, SHR showed out.
Yep.
All 4 of those cars would have been in the top 5 if not for some random, racing took place and they weren't. But all 4 of those cars were in the top 5 fastest cars all day.
Right. The speeding penalty by Ryan Preece was costly. I mean, nobody had anything for Ryan Preece all day long. There was a portion of the race where Denny looked really good. I think they just got stuck with that pit call late in the race, but Denny was like putting it on for a good chunk of that race as well. After stage 2, I think that's one of the big criticisms of Martinsville and this package across the whole is, there's such a contact patch, the horsepower's down. Somebody mentioned an idea of changing the ratio of gearing so it's a short 3rd and a very long 4th gear, so that they don't downshift. That downshifting doesn't do anything for them, and then as a result, maybe that'll kind of bring back the old Martinsville racing. But I can't say that's I can't say it was that good of a Martinsville race, and it looks like it was better than last year, but it wasn't Martinsville racing as a whole. And it seems like that's the sentiment I saw across the internet, which is weird because Richmond was loved a ton, and it really looks like people were like, "Wow, Martinsville was very boring." They voted no on that poll. Didn't like it. What were your guys' general thoughts of the race? Keeping in mind I think they said there was 1 or no passes for the lead on equal tires. All the passing for the lead was Kyle Larson catching and passing Logano, who stayed out.
The only meaningful pass of the entire day
for the lead.
Larson passing Logano.
For the lead.
And that brings up to the point because I definitely want to get in with Martinsville in general, but just real quick because I feel like it should be addressed. What in the hell happened to Logano at Martinsville? What was that,
bro? This man went.
That dude was running
down to
straight
second
up.
Place.
That dude was. I don't know what his team did. I don't know what kind of clunker they trotted him out in. But my God, if I was him, I would have been all over that team by the end of that because that was a P25 car at best. And I think, and everybody knew it. And that's the weirdest. It wasn't like, he was good car, bad luck, this and that. That car looked like shit entire day. There's no other way to describe it. And I'm kind of going, what are you doing? Like what? And maybe it's the package. Maybe it's with that particular, maybe the track, the combination of this and that, brought it together. If that dude would have won that race, I guarantee this would have been a situation where people would have been just up in arms with how does that. This would have been a highly contested and debated race if that would have been the case, because by no means did that car deserve to run P1.
I would argue
that race.
I would argue neither did the 5. Where was Larson
100%.
all day long?
100%.
The 5, this is one of his worst tracks. He looked like dog shit. He got a lucky caution that kind of, again, it put 11 cars on the lead lap. Larson, I think at the time, was like the last car on the lead lap at the time. He pits and takes 2, comes out first or second behind Logano or whatever the case is. First off a pit road, second behind Logano who didn't pit. I do agree that there needs to be something to where we could pass, where it makes it harder for these cars to get around the corner. It seems like with the downshifting, it allows them to get off the corner with the bad tires better, and the big contact patch with these tires allows that to exist. One thing that did have, sorry, it seems like you had a point.
No, I want to speak on Logano because Jeff's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I that may be the first time in all of my time watching that I have seen a car be 2 laps down and then lead laps. Like he was 2 laps down
I think
came
we
back
well,
and
that's
was leading
Martinsville.
laps.
That's Martinsville, right? Like,
I get it, but
but
that
he
to
was
me
slow
is
on pace.
that
I
is
agree with you. He was
yes,
slow on
I agree,
pace,
but
not through.
I
Yeah.
don't know who was making the call. The car was bad. Jeff is
Yeah.
absolutely right. The car was awful, but whoever that just looked like
Right.
veteran savvy to me. That's why these teams go out and get guys like Joey Logano. Circumstance played a huge part, but still, it's just like, dude, you can't replace that kind of experience and savvy and just like, dude, I can't even.
I would make a similar point. I mean, to that, like, so what the way that you're describing with the savvy and like I mean, I felt that way in numerous, like last year and this year. I've seen Larson do that on more than one occasion, and one of the reasons why I have a lot of respect for the guy. Like, just, I mean, in general, like, I'm not a Hendrick fan, and I have my own feelings towards some of that, but I don't really necessarily have some of the same like steam towards them that maybe like Corey would. But like, I know for me, like, I have a lot of respect for Larson because I have seen on numerous occasions that guy face adversity, like get wrecked, hit a wall, do whatever, to the point where he's driving a crumpled mess and, find a way to go from P20 to a top 5. His ability to just use his ability to get from the back to the front, it is impressive on a thorough level. And so that's a credit to Logano with what he actually did there Sunday at Martinsville. But to Finn's point also, the nature of Martinsville kind of allows you to do that. The Clip is one of those tracks that, you can look out your window and see the front of the pack when you're at the back. So you never feel like you're that you're that far behind. It's an interesting track in that regard.
Yeah, and we saw, like, we can't like credit the late race strategy call like that Josh Berry had when they went off pit cycle and came in and stole second at Richmond. Same thing for Logano, same thing for Kyle Busch, right? Like, I'm always a big fan of like, hey man, if there's an opportunity to steal and get on the right, take that risk, right? Because the risk that they take is in there, and it's on NASCAR to figure something out. So hopefully they do dive into it.
I would imagine that's a factor with this. That is because of this car, right?
Right.
The precedent has been set late in the race. If you've got some speed, take 2 tires on shorter tracks.
Right. On the shorter tracks. Right.
Take 2 right sides on the shorter tracks, because these guys who have done that are winning races.
Right.
So, like, why not, dude? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why not? The cars are super grippy. Put right sides on it. Don't get screwed over by a pit decision.
Right.
Just, cut your decision in half, take 2 tires, and
right, because it seems like if you get caught in the wrong lane on a restart, you're not going to be able to make up pace like we've seen in the past. So if they're not going to raise horsepower, if they're not going to change things, take 2. I mean, I feel like remember early in the year, I was screaming, I was like, where are the strategy calls? Where? And now we see them, and it's like, surprise. Here we go. My last point that I have for Martinsville, we can keep talking about it, but my last thing that I remember is the curious situation of Bubba Wallace beating off. That's the wrong word. Beating the bumper off of the 11. Cut that. No, Bubba Wallace beating the bumper off the 11 after getting past. Now, obviously, fighting to stay on the lead lap. It looks like he may have got moved by Denny, and then he was giving it to him. He was giving it to the 11, and you know what?
There was no relent. And I know when, like, I was tweeting at that point. I'm like, what are we doing today? What are we doing here, Bubba? Like, what's going on? Right. At that same time. But it's racing.
So what are your thoughts in the situation? Because any other sport, if there's a player owner, right, you are playing with like direct teammates. But this is a sport where player owner is direct competitor. What are your thoughts? I thought that Denny took it well. Apparently, from what I've heard and what he's said about it, is that he likes Bubba because that's the kind of guy Bubba is. He's not the kind of guy who's just going to lay over, and we're competitors, and as long as he races me clean, I mean, I would say, like, not intentionally wreck him, right? But hey, if you get mad, I'm gonna get mad at you. You get mad at me. Talk about it on Tuesday or Monday or whatever on the meetings. But it seemed like it was fine. I thought it was fine. Denny himself is a very hothead. Bubba's a hothead. They actually, if I'm not mistaken, they had a negative history prior to Bubba being asked to drive for 2311 in terms of button heads on race day. So yeah,
Well,
that was a highlight for sure.
Well, they're I mean, they're both thoroughly competitive. That's one of the things, like, and I'm not going to go and just cape for my guy here and just be like, wow, he gets emotional because he's competitive. Like, there are times where Denny says and does some real stupid shit, but it's out of that particular, like, it comes a lot from that spirit, and he tends to act, he tends to just kind of, emotion on the sleeve in the moment. That's kind of how he is, and that's fine. It's one of the things I like about the guy. I personally like, the dude's got a fire in him. That's one of the things I enjoy about watching him drive and watching him race. Now, as far as this particular incident, I would tend to agree with that. Like, if I know if I was in that position and I'm in the moment, I'm mad. But after, give me a second to reflect, and figure out what's going on, I'm going, that's why we got him. That's why I want him to drive my flagship car for the team that I'm going to, be the owner of for a very long time, because that dude does not give a shit who is in front of me and is not afraid of his boss being directly in front of him on the racetrack, and he's giving it to him constantly. I mean, there were multiple points when they got to those straightaways and they're coming into those turns where it was just beating and banging, like, just repeatedly, and all the Fox jokes talking about, oh, it used to be trading paint, and now what are we wrecking wraps? What are, ha 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 ha. But at the same time, I mean, that's what that was like. It was a lot of bumper cars going on there. For sure. And it was fun to watch. I like I said, I was a little frustrated at the time because all I could see in my head was coming around, coming into turn one or coming around into turn three, and that resulting in a spin, especially considering that drivers have already said once they put that car out on the track that those rear bumpers don't have a lot of margin for error with what you can do as far as the angle that you attack at. Right. If you actually go in and get into somebody, and that the quickness with which somebody can spin is, it's pretty fast.
Well, another thing too, remember from the Clash, they said to move somebody, you had to hit them hard. Like, it was violent contact into the bumper to move them. So if Denny moved Bubba, like moved him, he hit him hard.
Into him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, no holding back. He said move. So
it looked to me like race car drivers having a NASCAR race, and exactly. I admire the hell out of that,
right?
Because
right. Hey.
I would imagine, right? I don't know any. Obviously, I have no inside information, but if I'm Denny Hamlin, when I'm hiring Bubba Wallace, I'm going, look, man, I own this car, but I want you to go win this race. So if you're faster than me, you let me know that you're faster than me.
Right.
Right. Because that is the mentality of a successful driver, I feel.
Yes.
Like. I got two thoughts on it though. One, it was some of the best entertaining racing because he's diving through and around lapped cars to get back to Denny to hit him. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Like, that was crazy. Second of all, you're faster than the leader, Bubba. Why are we getting lapped? Like, where was that pace when the leaders are running you down? Like, you obviously, I guess he could throw it in the turn because he's going to use Bubba's bumper as a brake, or Denny's as a brake. But I was just like, why do you all of a sudden have speed? If you were just using the speed that you had, maybe you wouldn't have got lapped. But Bubba did finish ninth, so looks like he found the speed.
That was highly entertaining.
It was a good day. To your point, I have one last thing I wanted to say about Martinsville in general. Like, what I want to see, I'm interested to see what New Hampshire looks like.
Yeah.
Just given the general nature of the shape of the track, but with, a little bit extra length. I'm curious to see what happens at New Hampshire, because I've always looked at it as just, double Martinsville, like whenever you kind of look at New Hampshire. So if New Hampshire, because what we've seen thus far, it seems like the modifications that they've made is they've improved the mile, but then you kind of look at the half mile and now you're going, what's that?
It's not great.
So if you go to New Hampshire and it turns out a little more similarly to what Richmond did, it says to me that with this package and what they did, they improved a mile they didn't do as much on the even shorter tracks. And to be honest with you, it's a sacrifice I'm not mad about. Martinsville is not my favorite track on the circuit. It's just not, it's not my, I always look at it like, meh, it's a race, it's short track, things can get fun and everything like that. But
this is going to be a conversation we're going to have next week because I want to think on it for another week. And I don't want this podcast to go too long. Corey brought up a point. He said he believes, just off the rip, that Martinsville is the second most important track on the circuit. That because, one, it's the same package as Phoenix, and two, because it is the final race to determine who makes the Final Four. I think it's a good point. So if you're watching now, be it Spotify or YouTube, comment below or hit us on Twitter. What do you think the second, because obviously Phoenix is the most important track. You go there twice, so once is an opportunity to make playoffs, the other is to win the Final Four. What is the second most important track on the circuit as a whole? Is it Martinsville? Do we agree with Corey's analysis or another one? But that is our question. The debate topic next week, I think, could be a good one. I really like that question, so I want to remember that one. But yeah, for the most part though, yeah, like the racing itself doesn't need to be perfected at Martinsville. It doesn't change the answer to that question. But I agree with Jeff in that as long as as long as that package is good on Phoenix and Richmond and Loudon, cool. We could just let Martinsville be Martinsville twice a year, call it a day.
Pretty much.
So
I think that's probably going to be what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been of the mindset for a while now that I've never really understood why Martinsville is the track that leads into the championship four. That may be a controversial opinion, but I've always kind of wondered that myself.
I just hate that it's too boring back-to-back tracks. Give me a high-speed mile and a half to win the season. Not like Homestead was perfect. I don't understand why we have this, but either way.
Yeah, everybody's got their...
That was the first time I wanted to throw myself off a balcony after a race, was after Homestead last year. Hey, can we do 5 minutes on the appeal board thing?
That's on there. It's later. It's later.
All right.
It's later.
All right. It's there. Don't you worry.
All right. I have some thoughts. That's all.
But no, Corey's just stalling now because it's about time that we turn this into victory lane, because we actually have a little variety this week because Corey took an L. So Finn takes the win by 8 in NASCAR Fantasy Live, and therefore, Finn, you have the floor.
The funny part is he didn't start his favorite driver at this track because he didn't want to screw himself over on fantasy. But it was the man who started his driver, Chase Briscoe, that ended up winning. But I do have my own mini rant. It's not quite the love letter to Dan Snyder you had. It's more off the cuff, and we love this sport. We wouldn't spend this time talking about it if we didn't like it. The NASCAR, they had a meeting, and there's some plus side, but for the love of God, figure out how to make a solid NASCAR video game. Holy shit. There were talks this week. NASCAR has obviously had some conversations, okay? NASCAR video games have been horrid. They went from some of the best parts of early PlayStation 2, Xbox gaming to EA, no surprise, making it worse. And then whoever picked it up later has made a mockery of the sport. It's extremely buggy. The mode is texting simulator because you finish a race and you just get a bunch of text messages you have to read that are canned messages from your opponents. Why did you wreck me? I didn't wreck you. You hit me, idiot. It's not immersive. It's not fun. It doesn't play well. Please. And not only that, the release last year from Motorsport Games didn't even have next gen. Didn't even have next gen cars in it. We're dropping a NASCAR video game that does not have next gen. In fact, the only NASCAR game on the market right now with next gen is on the Nintendo Switch. Figure it out. You are losing a major amount of the fan base. You are missing out. You make a solid NASCAR video game, you will connect with so many people that remember those ones and go, oh, let's try it. And then other people that test the game out and they go, wow, this is great. Content creation and sports gaming is at an all-time high. The MLB The Show streamers are hitting, like the top guys there are hitting the highest they've ever had in terms of their followership and their subs. Throw NASCAR in the mix because iRacing is so successful, and partner with iRacing. iRacing partnered with World of Outlaws and made a freaking dirt track racing game that was extremely successful. Do it. So that's my rant. NASCAR, if you can figure this out, we will all be in victory lane because we will be happy and able to play a fun racing game. Because I'll tell you what the average person can't do. They can't go iRacing because they will go broke.
Yes.
Or they will break a bunch of virtual race cars because that shit is not built for fun. That is anger simulator.
Yes.
So
the $70 to buy a NASCAR video game will get you a quarter of the wheel that you need to buy for iRacing.
Yes. I have some thoughts, and I'm glad you had brought that up because one of the things that Finn had brought was that there were some talks, and essentially what this could lead into at this point, because this is a subject I've been very interested in, because I would say that honestly NASCAR video games as a kid was definitely something that really brought me in to take a certain interest in the sport. I mean, the old Thunder games were fantastic.
Bro,
the
we
Chase
lived
for the
on that
Cup
shit
in
in college.
05. Well, right. So when Corey and I were in college, when we used to run NASCAR 06, the team control, when they first implemented that, Corey and I used to run that game we'd be sitting in our college apartment. And we got to a point where just like the regular base stuff was boring. We used to literally run full 500-mile races, sitting there like no joke. We'd get in there and be into it. Our roommate would come out like, "You guys still running?" And we're like 2.5 hours later.
So like, how did you not get into the sport then?
It was, well, I mean, I did.
No, how did he?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, man, I don't know.
You're just racing because you like racing games?
Dude, I love racing games. I have always loved, they are my favorite genre of video game. Or I should say, they are the genre of video game that I am the most skilled at, right? It's basically for me, racing games, NHL, stuff like that, which is an interesting point that you bring up the show. Jeff and I really play a lot of NHL. I don't understand why this is so difficult, right? There's good racing games out there. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, the Need for Speed is awesome. Forza Motorsport 8 comes out later this year. It's going to be awesome. Racing games have been around for 35 years. It makes zero sense why they cannot make not even great, just give me a passable NASCAR.
Well, and I think the major thing is, and the major thing, the non-long-winded discussion is, games right now are built around monetization.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Games are built around monetization. How do we make profit on this game post-launch? And NASCAR and single-player career mode is not it. That's why all the other sports games have severely degraded from the early 2000s on their franchise modes, their single-player modes across the board, as the uptick in Ultimate Team and microtransactions. And there's not a way to do that in NASCAR. There's not. I mean, you guys play Chell and NHL. That game is inherently carried by its Hockey Ultimate Team because it's the same Chell every year. Doesn't get any better, right? Oh, it's just the same game every year.
That's the story with EA. I mean, we could have a very we could start an entirely different podcast about sports gaming in general. Also, to your credit, Finn, you didn't even plug your own stream during your time with the MLB The Show stream.
I gotta keep these two fan bases. I gotta keep these two fan bases separate of each other. Okay,
that's awfully convenient for you.
I keep my shirt on here. All right, there's no belly cam. I'll tell you what, if Bowman wins a race and I win victory lane in the same week, prepare your eyes. There will be some belly cams.
There's a plug. So the last thing that I'll touch on this one is what you were actually getting at with the talks that NASCAR was having with motorsports games. We are at the point where there's potential for this to hit courts. The last reports that were coming out when Ignition was getting released and this year's game was coming out, that the management was absolutely dysfunctional, that it was run with just pure chaos within that office. And now NASCAR wants answers to try and figure out why their product is being released in such a crap manner. And essentially this could result in just the full disbandment of motorsports games in general, because they are not going to take on NASCAR
Right.
in court over something like this. So it's going to go one or two ways. It's either going to be one of three ways. Either NASCAR and motorsports games, completely, separate, and a new group comes in and does it, or it's going to be motorsports games is gone, and then in a couple years we get a new manufacturer of a NASCAR game, or it just goes into litigation hell,
Right.
for a good while. So there's different ways that this could go. The positive, most hopeful outcome is that they part ways and somebody else gets in there to really try and make it, or the license gets spread around a little bit. So it like to be back in the day where you could get 3 or 4 manufacturers to come in and try and put out a quality product. So
give me NASCAR 2K23. Just give me that. Straight up, dude. Put it out there.
Compete that with compete 2K23 with a new Thunder game from EA, or
make them compete.
Have the just split them up. Whatever you got to do, it's working in some. I mean, look, Corey and I were talking the other day. The golf franchises at this point now, we finally have competition with EA and 2K both releasing a game. So that is what used to drive success. All the people that have said Madden hasn't been good for 10 years, that's one of the reasons why, because that same license has been with one owner for a very long time. Right. Okay. Sorry, like I said, we could go on with this one for a long time. I'm getting too excited going after it. So let's go ahead and carry into our next topic, and let's start talking about what we want to do next. So do we want to go over Dega at this point? And
let's hop right
into the next race?
Yeah, we got some Dega chat. So give us the rundown on Talladega Super Speedway here, Jeff.
I can do that. So I've got fast facts for you about the track in general. For anybody that's looking for or missing History Lane, I think what we're going to do is take History Lane in a little bit of a different direction and maybe do more to cover the crown jewels, to give them the credit that they deserve. Now, I'm not like Talladega obviously is, but stay tuned once we get down towards the end of the season, when we get to the second race at Dega, and we'll start talking about, more about a History Lane and really give it the credit that it deserves. So the fast facts that I've got about Talladega going into this week. Talladega Super Speedway opened in 1969. The capacity is in the grandstand, 80,000 people, grand total of 170,000 people for a full packed attendance. The track length as an oval is 2.66 miles. The banking on those turns, it ranges anywhere between 32 and 33 degrees. It does differ a little bit depending on where you are on the track. The fastest ever lap was run in 1987 in a qualifier by Bill Elliott at 44.998 seconds.
Holy
the first
shit.
Yes.
He was well into the 200s there.
Yes.
Holy shit.
He was real quick that day.
Yep.
So the first winner ever at Talladega was Richard Bragg House in 1969. The last winner was Chase Elliott. So with that, now you've got some information. Let's carry on and get a little bit more of a comprehensive preview rolling into Sunday. Finn, why don't you take it away and tell us what you want to talk about moving forward?
Well, I mean, we did a huge breakdown, and if you're curious to what plate racing is and super speedways and what pack racing is in NASCAR, I would implore you to go back to our second episode of the year, which was our Daytona 500 episode, where there's a big breakdown. So I'll go ahead and link that in the description below of what plate racing is. But if you missed that, the skinny is all of these engines are now being tapered down, and instead of being able to pull away from everybody else by being the fastest on the lap, no, they are now gun full speed, and the fastest you can go by yourself is about 185 miles an hour. With a couple cars with you, that jumps up to 195. So as a result of this, all of the cars are smushed together, front to tail, nose to tail for almost the entire race. And the whole goal of this is perseverance and patience and moving your way up and finding drafting partners.
Staying out of the big one.
Staying out of what we would call the big one, which is I mean, one person spins sideways, especially the leader, takes everybody else out. I don't know if I don't know if a prediction really serves us best here. as we will, obviously we're going to do our prediction of who's going to win this race, but we're entering an interesting part of the season. We kind of were talking about it with Bowman earlier, but right now our current winners are Ricky Stenhouse, who won Daytona, Kyle Busch, that went and won Auto Club. Then the Byron Double. We had Logano win in Atlanta. Reddick won at Coda. Larson won last week, and Richmond and Christopher Bell won dirt. So we're not even halfway through the season, and half of the playoff spots are taken. I would say roughly half of the playoff spots are taken.
Well, we're a quarter of the way through the season. Exactly.
Right, quarter of the way exactly. And already almost half of the playoff spots of our 16 are just completely taken up by winners. And I got a lot of names here of guys that normally they've got wins around this time of year. And I got the tracks that we're going to be going to, and I wanted to talk to you guys about urgency, right? So I wanted to throw some names at you, and you guys give me a feel for how urgent is this driver getting a win in these next couple tracks. So the next tracks for reference are Talladega, Dover, Kansas, Darlington, the All-Star race doesn't count, Charlotte, and Worldwide Technology. So I believe Dover, Kansas, Darlington, and Charlotte are all the same package, to the mile-and-a-half package. I believe Worldwide is the Phoenix package. I don't know exactly, but I believe it's the Phoenix package. And then Talladega is a crapshoot, right? But if you don't win one of these races throughout the summer, you're entering the fall, getting close to the, crunch time where the nerves start kicking in, and you need to be going to a track you're good at. These are some tracks that a lot of guys can find pace at. So I'm going to give you guys some names, and I want to hear how urgent do you think them getting a win in these next couple races is, and what's the likelihood of them getting a win at these tracks, right? Like, do you feel confident that they can get a win, or do they need to pull something out of the back pocket, right? So the first driver I got for you is going to be Bubba Wallace. Go ahead and start us off, Jeff. What do you think?
Jeff, you take Bubba.
Well, I mean, naturally, and I understand, like, you're coming into a point in which Bubba is expected to fare well at Dega. That's his first win. That is his home state. That there's a lot that goes into combining Talladega and Bubba Wallace. So, I generally think that he stands a solid chance. I think that he's going to get a quality car going in there because, if we know this, everybody in his team and everybody on that Toyota squad knows very well that this is a track that Bubba needs to do well at. And I think that at worst, it's, I think a bad day is low end of the top 10 for him going into Talladega. And the best case is obviously a win. I personally would predict, I think he's got just as good a chance as anybody, but I definitely think we see a top 5 out of Bubba at Talladega this week. I think anything less is kind of a disappointment. But I think that this may not necessarily be a do or die, but this is also, you need to ride whatever momentum you're still carrying because you did fairly well coming out of Martinsville. You've run fairly quick. It's time to, get yourself out there towards the front of the pack. So, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily do or die, but this is absolutely a show up moment. Bubba's got to be there.
And I'm not exclusively talking about Dega here. I'm talking about the next 5 tracks, right? Do you think that if, like, Bubba's team needs to prioritize? So, all right, because you mentioned Dega, but also he has one other win in the Cup Series, and that was at Kansas, right? And the other driver that won Kansas last year was Kurt Busch. So 23XI swept Kansas last year, and that's why I'm high on Bubba. We've got 2 tracks that Bubba is really, really fast at.
Yes.
Plus Charlotte, which is very similar to that. I feel confident that he can get a win, but I do think that if Bubba Wallace can't secure a win at 2 of his best tracks in the next 5 races, including some package that he's really good at, I think that they're in a dire situation going into the fall. The benefit for them, obviously, is that Daytona is the final race before the playoffs, which is another thing, a plate track. But again, in the same vein that Denny Hamlin has this reputation of being the best plate racer, and he is the best plate racer, right now the best plate racer is Joey Logano, because he was this close to winning the Daytona 500, and he put on a clinic at Atlanta. So, like, I right now the Fords are dominate. I mean, even Roush Fenway looks fantastic at the super speedways. So right now, if I'm 23XI, I got to get a win at one of these mile and a half. We know they're fast. We know Reddick's fast. Bubba needs to get fast. So Bubba for me is a must. He has to prioritize these because Bubba is such an emotional person, and that is not a negative thing, but that momentum. He's got a couple good finishes. He's looked solid. If he can't get, if he finishes the summer with no wins, I don't think that they can carry momentum and steal a win, a la somebody like Austin Dillon, who will just basically be nowhere all year, steal a plate race, and get in.
Yeah, pull a Stenhouse. So I will say, I think much like last year, you're going to have to win to get in. I don't think we're going to end up with 11 winners this year, right? Bubba's currently sitting 22nd in the point standings.
Right.
So, yeah, I would kind of agree, right? All of that rationale makes perfect sense to me. If you got 2 of his best tracks in the next 3, go get one, dude, or you're going to be in some serious. If you can't get it done there, where are you going to get it done?
Right.
Everything else be a crapshoot.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I think anybody who's in 22nd and is in a maybe not a premier car, maybe not A tier equipment, it's pretty good, but like he's the premier car on his team.
Yeah, I was going to say it's A tier for his squad. He is the flagship driver.
He's going to be expected to make the playoffs right now. 22nd, you're going to have to get a win, dude. You're not going to point your way in. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And nobody.
Right. Driver for you, Corey, is going to be Alex Bowman. Do you feel that Bowman needs to win over these? And then how do you feel about him winning and those kind of things? Same question, right? Like what's the urgency for Bowman here for you? Considering,
so let's qualify that. Is he going to have legal louvers on his car, or are we going to? No, I mean Bowman's going to get in. If you're in the 48, the 5, the 24, or whoever the other car is, the 9, any of the Hendrick cars, you're getting in. Don't worry about it. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time.
Historically, and I'm very curious. That's why I made that Reddit post. I think Bowman isn't do or die right now, and for a couple of reasons.
Maybe.
One, he is not. Or somebody, and what's funny, somebody said Alex Bowman is this year's Ryan Blaney. No, he is not. Ryan Blaney.
I feel like you took that personally.
No. This isn't the other way. No, this isn't the other way. Ryan Blaney was dominating stages last year. Yes. Ryan Blaney looked bad fast last year, and they just couldn't get the right situation at the end of the race to figure it out. There's been 0 times. One 50-lap run at Martinsville where the 48 was bad fast. And then everything else this year, he's 9th place in a 3rd place vehicle. And I just go, all right. And last year, when did he win? Vegas, 3rd race of the year. Year before that, when did he win? Richmond, early spring. Alex Bowman has gone into every summer in the 48 in the next gen car with the win and the ability to just ride around 25th literally last year. Remember the joke that I was making of like, oh man, good to see a small team guy like 48 finish top 20 this week. Bowman did 0, fuck all, but they had a playoff win. The 48 does not have a playoff win this time. There's nothing saving you from the summer of tracks that you can't find speed at. So for me, yes, he's won Dover, but he hasn't looked good at any of the tracks that are coming up. Any.
Yeah. It's just, I cannot picture a scenario where any of the Hendrick cars don't make the playoffs.
Right.
I just like it would break my brain, dude.
I get that.
I can't imagine it.
But that's because they've secured it early.
Make it, I will agree. I would say if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, hot seat. Absolutely, unequivocally, yes.
Well,
because
yeah.
if
Well,
you're in one of those 4 cars and you're not, and you're okayest at best, and you're not making the playoffs, they're going to replace you in a second because they could put just about anybody in those cars and put it in the playoffs.
Right. And Elliott would be the next one, right? And I think we're all universal on this one. We don't have any concerns. I think Elliott could finish
0.
Not even in the top 5 in these next 5 races, 10 races, or I would say these are 7 on the board here, and it wouldn't matter. I think we're all very confident that Chase Elliott's going to find his way into victory lane. He looked really solid at Martinsville. The last one I'm going to give you is going to be another. Actually, we've done a Chevy, we've done a Toyota. This is going to be my sneak one. Kevin Harvick. We got him top 5 in the. We got him top 5 in the power rankings. Okay, Briscoe's looked really good and has gotten really close to wins. I'm not gonna lie, the 4 has not been close to a win since Phoenix. He's not. He's solid. He's consistent. Has he led laps? What are your thoughts? We're coming up on tracks that we know he can win at because we know Kevin Harvick can win anywhere. We've seen like 10 win seasons out of Kevin Harvick. We know that there's not really a track on the schedule that he can't run and find success that's an oval. But do you feel like with the age and the way the car handled, remember Kevin Harvick was in danger of not making the playoffs last year until he snuck a win at Richmond, and then I think he won back-to-back. I feel like it was Richmond and Darlington. Did he win? I can't remember what race he won.
I'll look it up as I'm talking, but I mean, I'm not concerned about Harvick because he's that guy. It's small. It's small sample size for me, but like he seems unfazed. He's always like just gonna figure it out. Is kind of what I feel like. So
I think but I do think that he's in the spot Michigan, right? And that is a very similar to Kansas package, right? But my thing is that I fear like if he isn't careful, he could end up the Truex of last year, which is like, oh, we'll eventually get one. Yeah, we'll eventually get one. Oh shit, we don't have one.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so to your last two, picking Bowman and Harvick, like those are the two. Like, so to me, I don't know if this quite ends up in the same way that it does last year. I think we do actually have at least 1 or 2 point entries that are going. I don't know if it's going to be. I think last year was a little bit of an anomaly, but honestly, if you were to ask me who are the drivers that would be the ones that would find their way in based on points. Like so Bowman is one of those cases where I'm kind of like, I could see that. I could see him finding his way there because he's got 3 top 5s already.
If anyone points in, it's going to be Bowman.
But Bowman has Bowman has -5.
Weird if Harvick
but Bowman has -5 playoff points. Like Bowman is like, I mean, with the 60-point penalty, he's still on the outside looking. I get that. Without that, he's still up there and is the highest average finishing NASCAR driver this year for sure. But because of these points, I need better. I don't know if running around an 8th to 11th every week is gonna do it.
Yeah, you're looking for an assurance out of it.
Right. I need some kind of
point deduction. Right. Yeah, the point deduction right there is like that right there could be the biggest kick in the teeth as far as what it is, because he could consistently go out there and be a higher finisher throughout the year, but that deduction really could hit him in a way that, forces him and forces his hand to get himself a win. So
and I just looked, and there are 17 regular season races left.
Right.
Okay, before the playoffs. So maybe I'm wrong. You know what? Maybe we don't end up with 16 winners again because we're at 7 now.
Right.
With 17 races to go.
Right.
So we'd have to get 9 out of the next 17. It's a little bit over half with none of the guys who have already won winning.
Denny doesn't have one. Truex doesn't have one. Elliott doesn't have one. That puts us at 10 if those guys get one. Throw Bowman. Throw Blaney. That's 5. Harvick. Throw Harvick. That's 6. Throw Briscoe. That's 7.
Truex.
If I didn't count Truex.
Yeah.
Right? That's the playoffs. Now, what happens if Ty Gibbs steals one? What happens if Brad Keselowski steals one?
Yeah.
What happens if Austin Dillon or still Buscher, one Bristol? Dude, I do not, Bubba steals one. Like I do not think, I think the only driver right now, that I think does not need to worry about these next, the only 2 drivers I think that does not need to worry about these next is going to be Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. Those are the only guys that I don't think, because Hamlin's really coming on now. He's looking quick. As soon as he could figure out that NASCAR has rules regarding speed limits on pit road, he will be fine. It's been 5 years, but
he'll be cool.
He'll get it eventually. So we talked about the points. We talked about the points penalty. Colleague, looks like NASCAR reached out to the appeals board and said, hey, in the interest of fairness, it was the same race, it was the same louvers, it was the same practice section, in the same weekend, we need to have the same penalty. You said you wanted to give some spiel. Do you think they're saving face here? Do you think the Hendrick the backlash was too much and NASCAR said, all right, we need to save face? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's two ways that this goes in my head, and I've been thinking about this a lot since I saw that come out. I think it was earlier today.
Right.
One of two things: either NASCAR has finally shown their hand. That's option one, and that is they do have more control over the appeals board than they like to let on. And if they can just call up the appeals board and go, hey, change this penalty that you just gave, that's a problem, right? That nullifies the appeals board. Or they don't have as much control over the appeals board as they say, right? And they have just now taken it. Those are the only two choices, dude.
I think you got to remember that this was two separate appeal boards. It's not one appeals board that ruled in favor of Hendrick and then against Kaulig, and then NASCAR said, hey, make it even. It was two separate appeals boards that heard the cases from two different teams and came out with different decisions, and NASCAR said, hey, they got to be consistent because it's the same situation. Now, if Kaulig had fucked up the next weekend and then it was a different appeals board that heard it, okay. But I think this is NASCAR's way of going. And maybe now what I want to say in the future is if a situation like this happens, they need to both go to the same appeals board. It could be separate days, so that they can give their case and then they can give their case. That's fine. But I don't think I'm too worried. And again, NASCAR, I'm not the biggest fan, or I don't care all that much of NASCAR penalties that much. From my perspective, it's not really, I don't know. It's like minor. I can't even remember the last time somebody like Denny got in trouble last year and a whole win taken away from him over tape. Over behind the wrap. I don't give a shit.
That other cars were also running. I don't know. There's
the only other thought that I have on this is it feels orchestrated. Like
you're looking forward in.
Are we being like clickbaited by NASCAR because they don't have content during the week? Is that what's happening here? Because like all this, we got to have this appeals board this week. We got to have this other appeals board the next week. We're going to give this penalty back this week. We're going to give the other tip. Like it's just drawn out in such a weird way that it's like, why is this taking so long?
Yeah.
And honestly, the only thing I can come up with is like baseball is going on right now. NBA and NHL playoffs are starting.
I mean,
and NASCAR is irrelevant Monday through Wednesday.
Right.
They don't have anything.
Well,
so they have to put out these random little news stories that just get people talking.
Another thing to keep in mind is the William Byron penalty last year that got revoked after they had ran a race. Like the penalty happened, there was the thing, they ran a race, and people are running the race under the assumption that the 24 does not have a playoff spot or has these points, and then he gets it back, and then whatever. I'm very curious as to how quickly the turnaround for these penalties need to be, because we're in a bad. I don't think it should be taking as long. Like this is from like 2 to 3 races ago. Why is why is this taking too long?
You're a tinfoil hat on, right? I'm a tinfoil hat guy because of this. I feel like, and it's just like this all feels like a big song and dance to me for nothing. Like this should have just been. If this was the NFL, it would have been like, here's your penalty, done. Moving on.
Another thing to keep in mind, like,
coming.
Right. Another thing to keep in mind is that, like, you could just win, and who gives a shit about the points? You know,
very true.
Like, it's another thing too. Like, that's why I guess I don't care too much. Like, oh no, points. Like, you guys should just win a race, should be fine.
They got it right. It just feels so like clickbaity to me. I don't know. It's very, very strange, the whole situation.
Yeah, I feel that. Shall we do our predictions and get up out of here? Dega predictions.
You get to go. You get to pick when you go. I guess we set that precedent last week. Victory Lane winner gets to pick when they pick.
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay. Who you got?
I am gonna go with the 6. I'm gonna go with the 6.
Damn it, Vin! I swear to God, dude.
I'm gonna go with the 6. I think it's time. Roush Fenway gets it done. They've been fast at those tracks. I think the Fords have been quick. They'll end up with a Ford in front of or behind them. I think Brad Keselowski gets it done. That's my pick.
Jeff.
Me too. What do you think, Corey?
He said me too. I'm just gonna stay with it.
Well, I mean, we already talked about mine, and I'm gonna pick Chase Elliott, man. Because
That pass last year.
Dude, that's exactly what I thought about. I'm like, you know what? Who have I seen do something on a super speedway that just made me go like, wow? And the only time that I've ever seen that is Chase Elliott, man. This track, fall of last year in the playoffs, he put on a clinic of epic proportions, man. And I feel like it would be isn't it his home track, right? Don't there's like the siren and all that?
Oh no, he's from Georgia. Georgia's his home track.
I'm thinking of Bubba, right?
Bubba's home track, but
okay, right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that point is
I don't know if Alabama likes Bubba.
Invalid last point, but it feels like this would just be Mr. Smooth with my mustache, Chase Elliott, walking back, warming up at Martinsville. Then we're going to go rip it 195 miles an hour at Talladega and do some crazy shit, pass everybody and win. It just feels like that's how it's going to go. So I'm picking Chase Elliott.
Okay. I can't just say, okay, me too. On that. You know what? Screw it. I haven't, I think I might've done this maybe once.
Here it comes.
Earlier this year. I'm pulling this one out. I'm pulling it right out of my hat. Mr. Dennis Hamlin. To get this W at Talladega on Sunday. He's been hungry for it. He's been looking for his win. He's been picking up steam. He's found ways to get to the front at numerous occasions this year. He knows how to run super speedway tracks. He knows how to stay out of chaos, and he knows how to put himself in a position to be there towards the end of this race. So I think that if I'm going to even go with a more specific prediction, not only do I predict that Denny wins this race, I think Denny wins this race without winning either stage 1 or stage 2. I think Denny Hamlin comes in and wins it in stage 3. There's my prediction.
Yeah, man, telling the story of the race.
I tell you what. I tell you who's not. I tell you who's not winning any other stages. The 48. I don't know what's going on with this fucking car.
Watch Bowman win.
Listen, I love Alex Bowman. I do not need you to be Jimmy Johnson, but just be like a third of Jimmy Johnson, please. Like, oh, guy, so frustrating. You're so good, and I feel like I'm defending him every week. But brother, yeah,
let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's find out what we're gonna do. But I think that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. A little bit of a shorter episode, but we've been trying to kind of tighten it up a little bit so we're not occupying your ear space for 95 minutes to 2 hours every single week. So I think that's going to be it. We're going to make sure that you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck.
Yep.
Like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends, submit to the mailbag, reach out to us. You can also find us on Twitter, reach out to us there. You can find us at @IntRecPod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, share, and also members of the 4 Laps Down Facebook community. Please, tell us what you think. Interact with us there. And with that, I think we're done. Let's enjoy the race on Sunday, boys.
Peace.
Oh, yeah.
You can take what you want.